Hello and welcome, guys. This is the first episode of the Copper Wire podcast. I'm your host, Mo. So, this being the first episode, it'll be a news-related article and something that's quite hot right now in the news, and everyone's heard of it. If you've not heard of it, you've been sleeping under a rock. And that's obviously the files have been released, and we know whose files they are. Jeffrey Epstein. So I'm going to talk about him as sort of a brief history about who he was, what he did, and obviously the crimes that he committed, the horrendous crimes that he committed, shall I say. So Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 in New York. He went to school, he went to Lafayette High School, didn't graduate, didn't get any qualifications or degrees. Then in the 70s, he started teaching at a private school, taught maths at Dalton School in Manhattan. So there he met someone called Alan Ace Greenberg. He's the CEO of Stearns, however you pronounce it, through a parent. He actually got sacked there for apparently poor performance. But maybe there's something more fishy about that. We don't know yet, but that's what it's saying officially. So he got hired there, and through that job, he basically got introduced to, wealthy students. This is a private school after all, so he got introduced there. He taught their kids, right? So their parents knew him, and these parents are extremely, extremely wealthy. Yeah. So after he got sacked or left or whatever the situation was, says poor performance, he then became an options trader at an investment bank, which is at Bernstein's. He did quite well. He was advising wealthy clients on like tax, migration. And then in 1981, he left. After that, he became a financial consultant and the so-called bounty hunter to recover money or lost money for governments and wealthy individuals. He also worked as a high-paid consultant for Stephen Hoffenberg at Towers Financial Corporation. And that was a huge Ponzi scheme as well. Then in 1988, till he got arrested, basically, in 1988, he founded his own firm, J. Epstein and Company, and later it was renamed Financial Trust Company. He managed fortunes of the super rich, the ultra rich, money that you can't even dream of. This is the type of money that these people had. He managed their money. One of his most significant clients was someone called Les Wexner. He's the founder of L Brands and I believe Victoria's Secret as well. You'll have to fact check me on that. I'm not 100% sure. Another person that he managed money for was someone called Leon Black. This guy paid Epstein somewhere to the tune of $160 million for tax and estate planning services. This is insane. I'm going to reiterate, this guy, he had very little education. Like, he had no formal qualifications. He had nothing. Like, basically, he was your average Joe. Yet this guy rose to fame, to power, to money. He mingled with the elites. How does someone with his background do that? Yeah. So obviously his job at the private school helped him. He got to know a lot of people. He mingled with what we would say the elites, right? He got on with them. He must have been very, very charismatic in order to mix with these people, right? Manage their money. So, right. Let's get into sort of what he did, what he owned as well, and sort of try and dissect it all, right? So he acquired like insane amounts of wealth through the files. You can see he purchased parts of the Kaaba, which is important to Muslims. So parts of the Kaaba meaning the kiswa, the cloth that covers the Kaaba. He actually bought some, and these were sold to him by someone from the UAE, I believe. They sold it to him. So you see in the files, you can see it. There's emails back and forth talking about different things. And this plays an important fact that I'll probably touch on later. He got loads of things. So he owns an island. Most of us can't even afford a house, right? This guy owns an island. He's got a mansion in Manhattan, Palm Beach, mansion, homes in New Mexico, Paris, and all over the world probably. That's just what we know about. He's got multiple private jets, just all sorts, He's got one of them was called the Lolita Express. I wonder why he chose that name, yeah. So, right, let's get into the crux of what he did. So, he essayed and trafficked girls as young as 13, 14. And that's despicable. That's actually disgusting. People worked for him. I'm not going to mention any names, really, Maxwell. But these people, they allegedly looked for these girls. They brought him to the mansion. They promised money, for quote unquote massages. And then this escalated to essay and rape. These victims were threatened, paid off, or silenced. And this probably went on for decades, a long time. And these were done, I'm guessing, obviously, in all these locations, but the island was what everyone focused on because it's there. And a lot of people visit these islands, these like famous people, which I will sort of name a few names that allegedly visit these islands. So he did all these things. These are his crimes that he committed. Yeah, some of these crimes. Other things were like witness tampering, threats, as early as reports from like 1996. He had photos which are heavily redacted, obviously, for good reason as well, right? We want to protect the identities of these victims that he's created, right? He's the cause of this. He was also penalized for financial crimes, public misconduct, market misconduct, all sorts of heinous crimes that he did. Yeah. So what happened, right? How did this guy rise to fame? Yeah. How did he rise to fame? So, being the influential and charismatic guy he probably was to get to where he is, he managed money for wealthy individuals, and for people, money is sometimes everything. But it's not a good thing, right? Sometimes when you become ultra rich, you do forget about everything else. You sort of become used to a fast lifestyle. If you want it, you get it. And I think this is one of the things that happened to him. And he managed to do this with loads of famous people, like, billionaires, super rich people. And what I think happened was, there's allegations that he's a spy, he had a lot of information, a lot of dirt on a lot of people. And this is something, obviously, I personally think he used for blackmail. He had a lot of dirt on a lot of people, rich, influential, famous people, and obviously they don't want this kind of things getting out, right? So he's gone, he's mixed with these guys, and he's got this dirt on people now, right? And what he's done, he's got this dirt, and he's carried it on for years. He's carried it on so much that there's like 3 million files. 3 million files of evidence that has been like released to the public. I don't think anyone can sift through all those files and piece together a timeline of what has actually gone on, what has been done, what has been conducted in wherever he's done these things. It's horrendous. The stuff that used to sacrifice babies, they used to, do all sorts of horrible, horrible things to women, right? And there's pictures out there, he's got accomplices from what we see, Miss Maxwell. That's the one that we all hear about, so I'll just stick to that. Yeah. And then he's gone and done that, and he's rose to fame. And these are people in positions of power, so they don't want this kind of information coming out about them, about what they do, right? Satanic rituals, whatever it is, appeasing their gods, or whatever it is, this dark energy. From my research on Epstein, he was a very spiritual guy, but more towards the dark side of it all. He believed that, appeasing the dark side, the devil, or whatever you want to call it, yeah, would give him power, give him authority, yeah. And to an extent, for him, it worked, right? He did what he did, and he got into the position he was in. And yeah, that's it. So, backtracking again, in 2008, he got his sweetheart deal. Yeah. So he was first arrested in like 2005 in Florida. The outcome of that arrest was non-prosecution agreement. Yeah. Prosecuted at state level only for what he did. He served 13 months, mostly on work release, and immunity was granted to Epstein and any potential co-conspirators unnamed. Yeah. This deal was later ruled illegal for being hidden from the victim. Alexander Acosta, the federal prosecutor who approved it, later became the US Secretary of Labor under Trump. Wow. How do you get that? This is like elite protection. Yeah? Elite protection. So I'm just going to name a few like people like this guy with no remarkable like background growing up, right? Who he had connections with, who he socialized with, right? Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, Prince Andrew, Donald Trump, the current president, but that's blurry, so I don't know. Harvard professors, Bill Gates, Peter Mandelson from the UK. He is a parliament member, MP, who recently resigned over this, rightly so. You know, being associated with someone who has been convicted of these heinous crimes, and you've been mingling with him, and there's evidence of it, you know, rightly so, you would resign, right? Maybe you've done something wrong and it's come out. Like, I've not had the time to go through any of this, really. It's just shocking. It's just too much evidence, right? He mixes with billionaires, royalty, and intelligence agencies as well. Intelligence agencies. So just because obviously he's mingled with these people, you know, you can't label all of these guys guilty by association. The pictures and the evidence and the emails, you know, they all, you know, they point to a certain direction, right? So, you know, you can't rule it out completely, but it's not guilty by association. It's actually, the evidence will speak for itself. I don't think anyone's had time to go through it, and the files took forever to release, and they're heavily redacted. So this is just what was released. Like, we don't know what other things were in his files and were not released, right? Maybe they're still being redacted. Maybe they're going to come out in parts. We do not know, right? So fast forward to 2019. Yeah? Fast forward to 2019. July, he got arrested. Federal charges for trafficking of minors. And he was held at Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, in New York. He was found dead or unalive on August 10th, 2019. And he was said to have hung himself, which I find strange, obviously. He's usually quite careful, like these sort of places. You know, it's suspicious, right? And the reason it's suspicious, there's a few reasons why as well, right? You've got one of the most probably influential people in prison. Yeah? Cameras there, guards, everyone. And you're telling me that the guards fell asleep, the cameras stopped working, his cellmate was gone. You know, it's very dubious at best. Yeah, like, you can't make this up, right? And reportedly, the guy was going to talk, right? And towards the end of his life, he was obviously fearful for it, right? He wasn't in the right mental state. Not that he was while he was alive. He was doing all these other things, right? But he was expressing fear for his life. And he was very close to cooperating. That's what people say. And that's what's happened, right? What happened? Yeah, after that, after he died, what happened? The aftermath of that is Ghislaine Maxwell. She got convicted in 2021. She was sentenced to 20 years, obviously. Like, she's got pictures. She's a well-known associate. Some of the victims, like, they received settlements for it. And to be honest, after what they went through, that isn't justice, right? This is elite protection. That's what this is. He went to, I'd say a white-collar prison, right? I don't think there was anything. He had his own, he had his own room, right? Like, everyone has their own cell. And just to add to that, his cellmate on the day of his death was removed. He wasn't there. How? How does that happen? It's shocking. So his victims obviously received some settlements, and obviously, and rightly so, they feel that justice is incomplete. And the reason this matters is as follows, right? This feels and looks like it's a huge failure of the justice system, and how money and wealth and influence can actually shield you from crimes. Like, money is what protected this guy, and the evidence he had, like blackmail, all these things. Like, how does having money, why does that shield you from these horrible crimes, right? Like, horrible crimes. And then on top of that, you've got these poor girls, right? The minors, they're just ignored. They're just completely ignored. How does that happen? Yeah? This is like, in lack of better words, systemic protection of the elite people. Yeah? It's about power without being accountable. Yeah? Insane, right? And because obviously he died, and I don't believe he died. Like, personally, I think the situation is too dubious in order to say that he just died. He hung himself. He died in prison. Where there were so many cameras, guards, you name it. This couldn't have happened, and I doubt it. There's a lot of conspiracy theories. I'm one of those people that I wouldn't always take what's given to me at face value. It just wouldn't happen. So his death obviously stopped full accountability for him. He couldn't cooperate. He couldn't give any testimony. Yeah. So because he couldn't testify, obviously people, think they got away with it. No cross-examinations, no exposure of networks. Ghislaine Maxwell, she went to prison, but obviously she's not got the whole story, right? Why are people still talking about it? I mean, these crimes obviously happened a while back, right? Why are people still talking about it? It's not about one man. It's about power, silence, and the ones who the system really works for. Yeah? This is what it's about. And some of the stuff that I've read, genuinely speechless. How can an individual, again, I keep reiterating it, but it's on my mind. How can an individual, no remarkable background, gain so much influence over these elite, mega rich people? How? And it's all coming out slowly. People are obviously sifting through these files. And, you've got people from the UK that are pictured with him, some of the podcasters and presenters. I don't really want to say any names in case they try and sue. But it is crazy. His money enabled him to, do these things, right? For years and decades. From the 1990s onwards, and maybe even prior to that, right? I mean, he was a teacher at Dalton. I don't know what went down. No one's said anything. So, and obviously his death, I mean, I'm sure the victims are happy that he's gone, but I'm sure they feel that the justice still isn't served, right? So, this is a brief sort of story, an introduction, I guess, as well. And obviously, as things unfold, maybe I'll make another episode. I'll do some more research, and we can continue this. If you like what you hear, don't forget you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Copper Wire Podcast. I'm also on Spotify and TikTok under the same name, the Copper Wire Podcast. And if you like what you hear or you think I've said something wrong, leave it in the comments. I am always open to suggestions. If you have any topics that you want me to discuss, feel free to leave it in the comments. And I'll leave it at that for now. Take care, guys. Bye.